What are people slowly starting to forget? Phone numbers, addresses, etc. With the ability to save numbers to your phone and Google just about every address out there, many people don't seem to commit them to memory anymore. On the opposite side of that, I still remember my home phone number from when I was a kid. That was around 15 years ago now. How to just enjoy a movie or TV show without simultaneously looking at devices. I'm the worst example of this. If I'm at home, my hand just gravitates toward my tablet, no matter how much I'm enjoying what I'm watching. World War I. No veterans left and overshadowed by WW2. When to own something you had to pay only once. Now almost everything is subscription-based, requires paid upgrades, DLC, plugins and so on. Neighbors. In the late 90s our neighborhood used to have block parties, where someone would have a big barbecue and everyone would come hang out and have a good time. I talked to my neighbor once. He seemed like a nice dude. That was 3 years ago. He's probably still a nice dude. Nature. 100 years ago you could catch a cod that was 6 feet long off the coast of Newfoundland. Today you're lucky if you get one that is a foot. The strange thing is that people are equally excited now. We just think that cod are max 2 feet in length. Ecological amnesia is the term, I believe. It's also called shifting baselines. My grandpa remembers a world with way more birds in it, but once he's gone his baseline goes with him. Then it will be me remembering the number of birds from my childhood, which was already low compared to his childhood. Hence a shifted baseline. Everything's fucked and we don't even realize how far fucked it is. That crime rate is lowest as ever been. News channels feed the fear that the world is dangerous, to the point we don't talk to our neighbors anymore. We don't know who our neighbors are anymore. That is fucked up. Yeah, my neighbor's name is John. That's literally all I know about him. How much time and energy goes into making the stuff all around you? Everybody knows exactly how a pencil works, but no one can create a normal pencil by himself. I think I have a better version of this. We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. Carl Sagan. The recession of '08. I see so many people making the same mistakes once again, like leveraging everything to buy an overpriced house they can't afford. That people can take their time to respond, and need not be available through phone or social media all the time. The importance of your privacy. There's a documentary in Curiosity Stream where Edward Snowden says something profound. It's not about having something to hide. It's about having something to protect. That thing is liberty. Saying you don't care about privacy, because you have nothing to hide, is no different from saying you don't care about freedom of speech, because you've got nothing to say. The reason all those international, rules-based organizations were created after WW2, the World Wars, the Cold War, and just how fragile and valuable this society we've built up over the last 100 years is. We live in a society, but really, there are so many people in Western countries that get radicalized and think war is no big deal. They have no idea what luxury it is, in the grand scheme of things, to be able to live without the constant threat of death or violence. That the internet was not always around. That the person of the president is not supposed to be the primary focus of the news every single day. What it is like to have loved ones, especially children, catch diseases that today can be prevented through vaccinations. To read the accounts of children developing the symptoms of polio and having them forcibly removed from homes by civil authorities, neighbors watching, while screaming mothers and fathers tried to stop it, deny that their children were ill. I think if we were exposed to this today, some wouldn't be so resistant to vaccinations. We are becoming victims of our own exceptionalism. I recently got into an argument with a woman I went to high school with about vaccines. Her son has had severe reactions, so she's decided not to vaccinate him further. Fair. But in doing so she's become an anti-vaxxer. I reminded her how her son relies on herd immunity, and she said that herd immunity is bullshit. Hey, herd immunity is going to keep your son alive. A world before the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. The United States has been in that war since 2001. That means starting around next year there will be people fighting in a war that began before they were born. This generation has never known a world before 9/11. That people cough for other reasons too. Panama Papers. The clowns with knives of 2016. The Las Vegas shooter's motive was never revealed. Russian-supported separatists armed with a Russian anti-aircraft missile shot down a civilian plane full of Dutch citizens. And somehow it's still not political suicide when a politician suggests we should ease sanctions on Russia. We haven't forgotten yet in the Netherlands. It's a difficult issue, especially since the blame is not 100% clear and we're up against Russia. But it's still in the news. Proportionally for our country, the attack was worse than 9/11, just to give you an idea of the sense of scale. 3 entire families with children from my town were killed. Netflix that would arrive in the mail. Democracy isn't a given. The Malaysian airline disasters of 2014. 1. How an entire airplane just disappeared off the face of the planet, without anyone knowing its location despite millions of dollars spent searching over years. 2. How a commercial airplane can get shot out of the sky, killing everyone and no one gets held accountable. The fires in Australia. How big a deal Princess Diana was. How much of a wildfire her death was. How it was all the whole damn world obsessed about for months. Brexit, unless you are British. That Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. How to navigate using a paper map. Forget using a map, just being spatially aware of geography. I know too many people who don't know where one town or area is relative to another, they just go turn by turn all the time. How getting a degree was only needed for a job. You could get anything you wanted and still go into a technical position. Now your degree is essentially obsolete without the right degree or experience, or anything meaningful that makes your background better than the people you're competing against. Study just published recently, 66% of entry-level jobs require 3 years experience. That diseases like measles, mumps, rubella, etc. seldom appear today because of vaccines. Vaccinate your kids. Pandemic diseases like the Spanish flu that wipe out large populations. It's particularly worrying with Western medicine losing more and more funding, drug-resistant bacteria, and idiots like anti-vaxxers increasing the odds for viruses. How to burn CDs. You just throw them in a fire, right? Just how many insects should be around? In the last few decades or so, the biomass of insects has dropped drastically, and it's real bad, like ecosystem collapse level bad. Tell that to the 18 flies that get into my house every time I open the door. But remember when it was 1,800 flies? That there are repercussions. I notice these days that if someone insults you, for example, and you return fire, they immediately seem to forget that they threw the first volley of shit, and then act like you're the bad guy. Maybe accountability is being forgotten too? How hard people fought for civil rights in the US. For the right to vote and for the right to be treated with respect by their government. For a society where people are judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, or their gender, or their sexual preference, or their disability, or their national origin, or their religion, or their class or income. That people who oppose them politically are people. All the help you did for people, but remember one silly mistake you have ever done. Life is like Tetris. Your failures build up while your successes disappear. The guillotine remained France's standard method of judicial execution until as recently as the abolition of capital punishment in 1981. The last person to be executed in France was Hamida Jandabi, who was guillotined on September 10, 1977. Fun fact: the guillotine was designed as an enlightened method of execution. It was egalitarian, had no regard to class, unlike a swordsman who would sharpen his blade upon receipt of a tip from the condemned's family. That manners go a long way, and also how to have them. That it was possible in America for one person working one job to be in the middle class, to buy a home and maintain a family on one income. Opinion and fact are not the same thing. For PC gaming, that games used to have an unlimited lifespan. You could just modify a game in any way you like it. because it was normal to see total conversions or server-side mods that completely changed your game. Nowadays, the average game has about a 2-year lifespan and maybe about 4 years before the company decides servers will be shut down. People are slowly starting to forget how to think for themselves. Doesn't matter what the subject is, people just listen to someone else's thoughts, opinions on the subject, and then just reiterate them without understanding it completely by themselves. What are people slowly starting to forget? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.